Thank you for the introduction, and good evening, everybody. Have you ever thought about the loads you place on your feet each day? Let's use me as an example. Now, I'm a relatively tiny person, but let's say I make my goal of 10,000 steps. That means I'll be placing 1.25 million pounds on each of my feet. Now, thankfully, this loading doesn't cause me regular pain, but 75% of Americans will report foot pain this year. Further, many diseases, like diabetes, cause problems to the foot tissue, such as diabetes causing foot ulcers in high-pressure areas. So in order to understand how these problems occur, we must first understand how healthy tissue handles dynamic loading. Many researchers have used models to look at this, but these models have been impacted by the fact that they're too complicated, they do not consider accurate dynamic loads, or they're focused on a small area of the foot. My research aims to develop a simplistic foot model that will be accurate during walking. My model will use ellipsoids placed across the sole of the foot to determine the soft tissue properties in multiple areas. My model was built on the data of pressure measuring insoles from 26 healthy volunteers who walked for about 5 meters. From these insoles, I extracted 2 measures. The first is compression area, or the dynamic footprint you see at the top. The second is pressure, or the load on the tissue, which you see at the bottom represented by a gradient of colors. I used these 2 measures as inputs to my model. My model had ellipsoids placed at multiple locations on the foot, including the heel, the arch, the ball of the foot, and the toes. Each of these ellipsoids were optimized using a MATLAB program to determine the soft tissue properties in each area. These properties were stiffness, or the springiness of the tissue, and damping, or how it absorbed the impact of the load. My model found that these properties vary across the foot. Each part reacts differently. For example, the heel has the largest damping, while the arch is the most stiff. This means that the heel will absorb the impact of the load, while the arch will act as a spring to propel the person forward. My model was also found to be more accurate than previously validated spherical models, where in the bottom right you can see my ellipsoidal model in green, the spherical model in red, and they're both being compared to experimental data in black. My model has the potential to tell us what healthy tissue does. And if we can understand what healthy tissue does with respect to loading, we can understand the changes that occur in unhealthy tissue. And if we can identify these changes, we can develop effective preventions and treatments for these problems and allow the millions of people who suffer from foot pain and tissue disease to have an improved quality of life. So remember your feet. Thank you.